so in this video I'm going to go over the final review. This one wants me to graph the function that's represented by the following transformations. It's this current graph is the absolute value of x minus 2 plus 4, and then I'm going to go 7 units down from that and 3 units left. So first thing I want to do is graph my parent function. This one is left 2, up 4 from my origin, or not left 2, right 2, opposite the sign. Right 2, up 4, and then absolute values are v-shapes. So this one is my f of x. Then from this graph, I want to go 7 units down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oops, and 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3. So right there. Ignore that first step. And then again, it's a v-shape. And this one is going to be called g of x. This one wants me to find the change in x and the change in y from the point to the left to the point on the right. So my change in x is how much I'm going from here to here. I have gone over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then my change in y is how much I'm going up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could also have done, for this one, I could have done 5 minus negative 2. And for this one, I could have done 2 minus negative 2, because x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm just doing x2 minus x1, y2 minus y1. This one wants me to write the point slope formula, which remember is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. You will have a list of formulas with you when you go to take the final. That gives me this points. So I have x1, x2, or x1, y1. Sorry, this cricket. x2, y2. Then my slope formula, remember, is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So plugging in for my slope, because I first need to find my slope, I'm going to have 11 minus, I drew over that. Give me a second. 5. Negative 5. Over negative 3 minus 5. So on top I have 16. On the bottom I have negative 8, which gives me negative 2. Plugging in, I have y minus my y sub 1 was negative 5. Then I have negative 2 times x minus my x sub 1, which was 5. I just want to get rid of double negatives. So I have y plus 5 equals negative 2 times x minus 5. Okay. Is the following sequence arithmetic? If so, identify the common difference. Remember, this one is adding or subtracting pattern. So this goes up 6, up 6, up 6. That means my common difference is 6. This next one is sigma notation. I can do this on my calculator. So I can go math, and I want to go to choice 0 for summation. Then I type in x1. Basically, I'm just copying what's written there on my paper. Parentheses 2x plus 3. Just gives me 77. This one wants me to solve x plus 6 equals the absolute value of 3x plus 2. So I'm going to set up 2 equations. X plus 6 equals 3x plus 2. And x plus 6 equals negative 3x plus 2. So solving my first one, I'm going to subtract x on both sides. I have 6 equals 2x plus 2. Subtract 2. I have 4 equals 2x. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 2. Same thing over here. I'm going to distribute that negative. So I have negative 3x minus 2. I'm going to add this 3x over because I like dealing with positive x's. So I have 4x plus 6 equals negative 2. Subtract 6. I have 4x equals negative 8. Divide by 4. X equals negative 2. This won't always work out with their opposite signs, so I need to make sure that I put my negative up here at the beginning. Number 7, the first thing I want to do is isolate my absolute value. So I want to start off by adding 6 to both sides. I have 2, absolute value of x plus 2 is less than 6. Divide both sides by 2. Absolute value of x plus 2 is less than 3. Then I'm going to set up two inequalities. X plus 2 is less than 3. Just remove the inequality signs. And then x plus 2 is greater than negative 3. So when I change the sign on the 3, I also flip the sign on the inequality. Then I subtract 2. Okay, so then this gives me x is less than 1. Over here I subtract 2. X is greater than negative 5. If I quickly sketch this out on a number line, I'll do this over here. Negative 5, negative 4, negative 3. So I have x is less than 1, which goes to the left. And then I have x is greater than negative 5, which goes to the right. This means that these should be connected. So I have, oops, I want my smaller number on the left. Negative 5 is less than x is less than 1. This one wants me to solve the systems of equations. Because I have one that's already solved for y, I'm going to use substitution. So I'm going to plug in. I have 2x plus 5 times 2x minus 10 equals 10. I'm going to distribute. I have 2x plus 10x minus 50 equals 10. Combine like terms, 12x minus 50 equals 10. Add 50 to both sides. 12x equals 60. Divide both sides by 12. I get x equals 5. Oops. The system of equations I gotta solve for y too. Then if I plug in, I have y equals 2 times 5 minus 10. I can pick either equation. I'm going to pick this one because I don't have to do anything to solve for y. Y equals 10 minus 10. Y equals 0. So my answer should be a coordinate pair, which is 5, 0. Number 9 says you can have at most 20 guests you can invite to your party. Serving a steak dinner costs $20 and serving a chicken dinner costs $15. You only have $300 that you can spend. Let x represent steak dinners and y represent chicken dinners. Write a system of equations and graph the solution set and determine if you can afford 5 steak dinners and 15 chicken dinners. So I can have a total of 20 dinners. And then I want to see if I can afford 5 steak. So steak was x. 15 chicken. Actually, I just realized on the second equation, I want it to be the cost. So I want it to be 20x plus 15y equals 300. And then I want to plug these values in for x and y to see if they work. So I'm going to have 20 times 5 plus 15 times 15. 20 times 5 is 100. 15 times 15, I think it's 225. Yeah, 225. Which gives me 325, so they do not. Number 10 wants me to use the graph and write the equation of the quadratic and vertex form. So first thing I gotta do is figure out my vertex. This is 2, 5. And this is crossing at 0, 4. So this is my HK. xy. I'm plugging into y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So I have 4 equals a. That's what I'm going to be solving for. My x is 0 minus 2 squared plus my k. So I have 4 equals, I'm going to change this to negative 2 squared times a and move the number up front. Then I have my plus 5. I want to subtract 5 on both sides. Negative 1 equals 4a. Divide both sides by 4. A equals negative 1/4. Plug back in a, h, and k. So I get y equals negative 1/4 x minus h squared plus k. So it says given, not, wow. H and k I actually wanted to be numbers. 2 and 5. Okay. Next one says given f of x equals x squared, write a model for g of x based on the following transformations. 4 units left, 2 units down. Write in both vertex and standard form. So I am going 4 units left, so that is opposite of the sign, so plus, and then 2 units down. That is my vertex form. And to write in standard form, I want to FOIL this out. So I'm going to have x plus 4 times x plus 4 minus 2. This is going to give me x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16 minus that 2 at the end. Then I want to combine like terms. I end up with x squared plus 8x plus 14. And this is standard form. This one says given the function g of x equals negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 3, give the following. I'm sorry, this didn't format well. It's going to be on the next page. For my vertex, this wants me to find x equals negative b over 2a. So I need to label my a, b, and c. A is negative 2, b is negative 4, and c is 3. So I have negative 4 over negative 2. Oh, 2 times negative 2. So positive 4 on the top, negative 4 on the bottom gives me negative 1. That is just my x value for my vertex. I need to plug back in to find my y. So g of negative 1 equals negative 2 times negative 1 squared minus 4 times negative 1 plus 3. I could type this into my calculator. I'm going to solve it all by hand. I have negative 2 times 1 plus 4 plus 3, which is negative 2 plus 7, or just 5. So my coordinate point is negative 1, 5. I'm going to rewrite this formula on the next slide. So I had negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 3. My axis of symmetry is always my x value of my vertex, so that we had was negative 1. Because this is a negative graph, I know it's shaped like this. I know this vertex we said was negative 1, 5. So my increasing is only looking at my x values. To the left of this, I've got a positive slope. Oh, it's also looking for positive slopes. So, negative infinity to negative 1. This question might have inequalities, in which case it would be x is less than negative 1. And then decreasing is where I have a negative slope, which would be negative 1 to infinity. Again, if it has inequalities, it would be x is greater than negative 1. This one wants me to find the equation of the parabola in standard form. So what I do is I press stat, edit. If I need to clear out my list, I arrow up, I press the clear button, and arrow back down. So I arrow up, clear, arrow down. Then I have 1, 0, 8 for my x values, and then I type in their matching y. So I have 2, 7, 23. Then I go stat, calc. I wanted to find a parabola, so this is quadratic regression, choice 5. Arrow down all the way to calculate. It gives me the ABC values, so I have y equals 1x squared minus 6x plus 7. I don't have to write that 1, but your computer might want you to type in a number in the box, in which case I would want to write the 1. Number 14 says using the intercept form of the quadratic y equals a times x minus p times x minus q, write a model of the quadratic with intercepts 6 and negative 3 and passing through the point 3, negative 6. So this is my p and q because it tells me those are my intercepts. This is my random point x and y. So I have negative 6 equals a. I'm again solving for a. My x was 3 minus my p of 6. And then 3 minus my q of negative 3. Simplifying, I have negative 6 equals a times negative 3. 3 minus negative 3 is positive 6, because I add, because of the double negatives. Negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. Divide both sides by negative 18. I get a equals 1/3. So I plug back in a, p, and q. I get 1/3 x minus 6, x minus negative 3. I just want to get rid of my double negatives. Okay, this one wants me to solve the equation x squared equals negative 49 for x. Take the square root of both sides. I get x equals plus or minus, because whenever I draw the square root symbol, I get a positive and negative answer. The square root of 49 is 7, but because it was negative, I have to remember to include that I because it's imaginary. It's not a real number. Number 16, I can do by hand, or I can type into my calculator. So I could do parentheses 4 plus 3, and then how do I get I know I can go to catalog. Catalog. Second, 0 to get to my catalog. And then I want to look at my eyes. Press that I. Then, oh, I should be a button on my, found it. 2 minus 3, and then to get the I go second. I is the decimal. And I put that in, and it gives me back my number with my imaginary I in there. So 17 minus 6i. This one wants me to write the following in the form x minus p squared equals q. I just want to set this equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract 11 on both sides. I have x squared minus 18x equals negative 11. I need to put this is telling me to complete the square, so I want to find half of negative 18, which is negative 9. So I'm going to add negative 9 squared to both sides. So that gives me x squared minus 18x plus 81 equals negative 11 plus 81. Combine like term, or factor the left. So I'm going to get x minus 9. This should match up with that number right there, squared, because negative 9 times negative 9 gives me positive 81, and then negative 9 plus negative 9 gives me 18. Then I want to go ahead and combine like terms here. I get 70. This one wants me to solve using the quadratic form and simplify if possible. My a is 1, b is 4, c is negative 7. I'm going to go ahead and plug in. So I get x equals negative 4, plus or minus the square root of 4 squared, minus 4 times my a value of 1 times my c value of 7, all over 2 times 1. So it gives me negative 4 plus or minus 16 plus 28 over 2. 16 plus 28 is 44. 44 I want to do my factor tree on. I get 2 and 22, 2 and 11. I have a pair of 2's that can come out. So I have negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root 11 over 2. I can split this up into 2 fractions. So I get negative 4 over 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 11 over 2. Which just simplifies to negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 11. This one wants me to solve the linear quadratic system of equations to write my answers in ordered pair. Just like before, I'm going to use substitution to plug this in. So I have 3x plus 12 equals x squared minus 2x plus 6. Subtract the 3x on both sides. I have 12 equals x squared minus 5x plus 6. Subtract the 12. 0 equals x squared minus 5x minus 6. I'm looking for what multiplies to negative 6 and adds to negative 5. That is negative 6 and positive 1. Then I take each of these factors and set them equal to 0 by the zero product property. So this one I add 6, I get x equals 6. This one I subtract 1, I get x equals negative 1. This one wants me to describe the end behavior. It is even and negative. So that means it's going to be a frowny face. So as x goes to negative infinity, this is telling me on the left side, my graph is going to go, I'm going to say negative infinity because it's going down. As x goes to positive infinity, so as it goes to the right, f of x is also going down. This one wants me to subtract. There's a minus sign in between, so I want to distribute. So I'm going to change that and then change all my signs after. I only have 5x cubed. Negative 7x squared, negative 5x squared is negative 12x squared. 2x minus 3x is negative x. Let me grab another color. I just have a positive 2 at the end. If 22 wants me to perform the indicated operation, I'm just going to FOIL. So I have 2x squared times 2x squared gives me 4x to the fourth. 2x squared times negative 7y gives me negative 14 x squared, right? I write my letters in alphabetical order. Then I have 7y times 2x squared gives me 14 x squared y. 7y times negative 7y is negative 49y squared. Combined like terms, these two middle ones will cancel out. So I have 4x to the fourth minus 49y squared. This one wants me to factor it. Both of these terms can be divided by 3x. So I have 3x times x cubed plus 27. I could take the cube root of 27, it gives me 3, so this is in the form a cubed plus b cubed, which means it's going to factor to a plus b times a squared minus ab plus b squared. The square root of, or the cube root of 27 is 3. So I have x plus 3, and then I have x squared minus 3x plus 9. This one wants me to factor this completely. I can do it by grouping. So I break it up into groups of 2. My first group has x squared in common. So I have x squared times 3x minus 1. My second group, I can take out negative 9. I always want the leading number to be positive. So I have 3x minus, I think this one is a typo. I think this one should have been a plus 9. Plus 1. Then I get x squared minus 9. And then I have the same thing inside the parentheses. Like I said, it was a typo. This first one factors by the difference of squares. It gives me x minus 3, x plus 3, and then 3x minus 1. Number 25 wants me to use synthetic division to find the remainder. So that one is with L. I have my 1 here, and then I just write my coefficients. I have 1, 5, negative 7, negative 2, 4. Bring down my 1. 1 times 1 is 1, 6. 6 times 1 is 6. Negative 1, negative 1, negative 3, negative 3, 1. So my answer is just 1. Find all the zeros of this polynomial. My first step here is I want to go ahead and graph this to see if I can see any on the graph. So I want to type this into my calculator. So I have x to the 4th power plus 6x cubed plus x squared minus 24x minus 20. I am crossing at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5, negative 2, negative 1, and then 2. I have 4 zeros, which is my highest exponent, so I don't have to go any further here. This next one wants me to find all the solutions for this cubic one, so I need to first get everything over on the same side. I'm going to add x squared, subtract x, and subtract 2. That gets me x cubed minus 3x squared minus 4x plus 12. I can, again, factor by grouping. So this one I can take out an x squared. Then I have x minus 3 over here. I can take out a negative 4. I get negative 4 times x minus 3. X squared minus 4 times x minus 3. This one is a perfect square, so I can factor it to x plus 2, x minus 2, x minus 3. Okay, number 28 says the volume in cubic feet of a storage box can be represented by the following function. If one of the dimensions is x minus 1, what are the other two? So I can use synthetic division. I want to take this and set it equal to 0, which gives me x equals 1. So that is going to be the number I use for my synthetic division. I have 1, 4, 1, negative 6. Bring down my 1. 1 times 1 is 1. 5. 1 times 5 is 5. 6. 6. 0. It should give me a 0 here. So if I turn this back into a quadratic, it's x squared plus 5x plus 6. I'm looking for what multiplies to 6 and adds to 5. That is going to be 2 and 3. So I think that's just as far as I need to go for these dimensions, because it just wanted it in the factor. This one says, what is the equation of y equals x cubed given the following transformations, or translations? It's got a vertical stretch by a factor of 3, so I have y equals 3. A horizontal shift of 2, that means right 2. So in parentheses, I'm going to have x minus 2. It's still cubed, so I still have that as my exponent. The vertical shift 6 units down is just minus 6. Number 30 says you play a game requiring a rolling of a 10-sided dice, and you choose a marble from a bag of 8 green, 3 red, 5 blue. So 8 plus 3 plus 5 equals 16 total marbles. If I roll a 7, that's 1 out of 10. And I want a red marble, which is 3 out of 16. So I just multiply these two fractions together. I get 3 out of 160. Number 31 says the table below shows a survey of 2 classes and whether they studied for the final. Find the probability that they studied for this test given that they're in second hour and round to the nearest 100. So studied second hour is 17. And then this second phrase is what I'm dividing out of. So I want the total studied, which is 30. Oh, not total studied, total second hour. 22. 17 divided by 22 is 0.77 thousandths. Tens, hundreds, 3. Next one says a basketball team has 14 players on it. How many groups of 5 can be created? I don't care about positions, so order doesn't matter. This one is going to be C, so 14C5. I go math, over to probability, and oops, I put the wrong one. NCR, so I do 14C5, which gives me 2020.